A Russian ammunition convoy fell into an ambush, and Ukraine immediately launched a crushing attack. But was this just an instant victory or a turning point for the entire war? It all started on a dramatic August morning. A Russian convoy carrying 50 tons of ammunition had just stopped to refuel when two suicide drones flew straight at 200 km/h. Within 5 minutes, two precise strikes turned the huge ammunition depot into a sea of fire that shook the ground. But the nightmare was only just beginning. The massive explosions, visible from more than 20 kilometers away, turned the rear line into the front line. At 10 a.m. near Svatov, two suicide drones from the 14th Ukrainian UAV Regiment performed a final check before taking off for one of the most strategic strikes. If you support Ukraine, comment number 1. If you support Russia, comment number 2. In preparation, Ukraine launched its electronic eye into the sky. 15 minutes earlier, a modified DJI Mavic 3 took off, transmitting infrared imagery directly to the command post. It acted as a scout, guiding two attack UAVs toward the target. 5 Ural trucks loaded with ammunition heading toward the IDAR-17 transit station. The fateful moment approached. UAV-1 dived from 10 meters, maintaining a very stable flight path, accelerating to nearly 140 km/h. It crashed straight into vehicle number 3, the weak point of the entire group. The impact exploded. The superheated plasma stream penetrated the fragile steel shell, turning the ammunition compartment into a pressure furnace ready to explode. And then, the blow came. At a speed of nearly 90 km/h, the PG-7VL warhead exploded, releasing a super-fast plasma stream hotter than 2,800 degrees Celsius. The steel was torn apart like paper. The propellant and fuse inside burned. In an instant, the entire truck bed turned into a screaming time bomb, ready to blow everything away. The heat from the explosion reached its limit. The temperature exceeded 2,900 degrees Celsius, causing all the shells inside to detonate in a chain reaction. Within 5 seconds, the cargo hold became a blazing inferno. The flames quickly spread to the two adjacent vehicles, forcing the entire formation to endure the uncontrollable heat of destruction. Chaos broke out. Some soldiers hurriedly tried to drive away from the battlefield, but the gap was too narrow. The fire from vehicle number 3 blocked the escape route. In just a few dozen seconds, the entire group was trapped in a death trap. Meanwhile, the second UAV had prepared a lock-on attack from behind, turning the formation into a static target. The precise attack took place. UAV-2 hit the trunk of vehicle number 5. The warhead exploded, blowing the ammunition compartment into a giant column of fire. In an instant, the two burning centers from vehicles number 3 and number 5 merged together, forming two fierce pillars of fire, enveloping the entire Russian convoy in a deadly fire cage. The inferno erupted. Car number 3 continued to explode, sending shock waves through car number 2, sending debris flying into car number 1. The fire and pressure were overwhelming, destroying the steel structure. In just a few seconds, the entire row of cars in front were caught in the chain explosion, turning into an unstoppable abyss of destruction. In an instant, the site became a rocket furnace. The pressure increased, the car compartment ruptured, sending a column of fire shooting up into the sky. Car number 4 was caught between two burning cores, melted, and exploded into a cloud of fire. The third explosion followed, raining steel, scattering shells everywhere, turning the entire Starobilsk into a dead zone. Each explosion sliced through the Russian formation like a blade. One by one, the remaining vehicles were shredded by drones. With their armored shield gone, Russian infantry scattered in panic across the open fields. Ukraine didn't hesitate. Their top priority: finish off the already disabled armored vehicles, erasing every trace of Russian firepower right on the spot. The rain of artillery and drones kept pouring down without mercy. Enemy vehicles were torn apart one after another. A few tried to flee, stubbornly clinging to survival, but none escaped. Ukrainian drones stalked them like relentless phantoms. The outcome was chilling. Every target eliminated. Thanks to the masterful coordination of the Arton unit, Russia's assault was crushed before it could ever begin. But it wasn't over. Another Russian assault began, and disaster struck from the very first move. A lead mine-clearing tank pushed ahead, seemingly unharmed, until it hit an obstacle. The Russian crew, desperate, fired a reckless shot to clear the path. A fatal mistake. The shell failed to destroy the target, and worse, it exposed their position. What came next was a catastrophic end. At that moment, a Ukrainian tank struck back. Precision rounds slammed straight into the Russian vehicle's hull, destroying it completely. One Russian IFV managed to unload troops just before being hit. The crew fled in panic, but Ukrainian soldiers were already waiting. Javelin launcher locked. One shot. That's all it took. The ammo inside erupted into a fiery blast, engulfing everything, burning down any hope of a Russian counterattack. The shock wave from the explosion rippled across the battlefield. The remaining vehicles tried to flee, but were hunted down one by one. One crew attempted to hide their tank in the forest, but it was useless. Ukrainian drones spotted them instantly. Realizing their hopeless situation, the crew fired wildly into the sky, trying to shoot down the drone. But it was far too late. Within minutes, 2 more tanks were destroyed. Another deadly mistake had just sealed their fate. One more Russian vehicle pushed forward, completely unaware of the doom ahead. Overhead, a Ukrainian drone, like a ghost patrolling the skies, had already locked on. The final strike was visible from the distant tree line. In April 2025, Ukraine's 31 St. Mechanized Brigade spotted yet another Russian armored convoy on the Zaporizhzhia front, and this time, they were fully prepared to meet the threat with zero mercy. It all started when a Russian combat reconnaissance group, consisting of armored personnel carriers, APCs, and tanks, was ordered to attack the front line. One APC recklessly drove straight through the battlefield, breaking through the defenses, opening the attack. But the tank behind was not so lucky. It hit a mine and exploded into a fireball. Russian infantry immediately dismounted from the APC and poured into a Ukrainian trench. However, the Ukrainians quickly re-established their defenses. Subscribe to our channel to continue watching more exciting military battles. Meanwhile, the tank crew abandoned the burning vehicle and the convoy was immediately brought to a standstill. Another APC near the edge of the forest was hit by artillery fire, sending flames and smoke billowing into the air. A battle broke out between the Russian assault force and Ukrainian soldiers in the narrow trenches. Part of the Russian convoy tried to retreat in the other direction, but made the fatal mistake of running into a minefield. The reconnaissance group was wiped out, and the vehicles were completely destroyed. Meanwhile, the fighting in the trenches continued fiercely. The Ukrainian forces called for reinforcements. Bradley fighting vehicles quickly moved in to assist. At the same time, a Ukrainian reconnaissance drone spotted a large column of Russian military equipment. The coordinates were sent to the nearest artillery battery, and the artillery opened fire with cluster munitions, with terrifying effect. A Russian tank was instantly destroyed. The Bradleys arrived. The Ukrainian infantry immediately poured in, and the Bradleys provided fire support, repelling the attack. The majority of the enemy troops were now close to the Ukrainian lines. Instead of using tanks with mine-resistant equipment as usual, Russia sent APCs to lead the way, a disastrous decision. Mines slowed the advance, and Ukrainian artillery used that to deliver scalpel-like precision strikes. In the trenches, Ukrainian soldiers fought while saving every bullet. Comment number 1 if you like Ukrainian soldiers. Grenades exploded. The Bradley kept moving, still providing support like a tireless warhorse. Another drone spots another convoy from the flank. A Russian soldier spots the drone and opens fire, but it's too late. The Russian tanks begin moving in intricate formations to confuse the attack. The first tank enters the sight of the Ukrainian infantry, and they realize they are surrounded. Enemy tanks opened fire trying to break through the defense line. But to capture the Ukrainian position, they had to pass through dense forests and mines. The first tank was stopped. The second rushed forward but met the same fate. Ukrainian artillery immediately opened fire, destroying the stationary targets. At this point, dozens of FPV drones took over the sky. Some flew to support the besieged soldiers, others swooped down to destroy enemy vehicles. A Ukrainian soldier volunteered to counterattack, but quickly radioed the enemy was too numerous to advance. The Russians are trying to completely encircle it. Another large Russian mechanized column has crossed the previous minefields and is advancing towards the key area. They used smoke and diversionary tactics to advance further, but here they encountered fierce resistance. Russian tanks and APCs were caught in the line of fire from anti-tank missiles. A lead tank tried to clear a path by clearing mines, but was unfortunately hit. And that hit became the turning point of the battle. An APC was shot down by an anti-tank missile, blocking the path, turning the entire convoy behind into an easy target. Another APC tried to swerve and hit a mine. Artillery fire rained down. A panicked APC charged forward and was also blown to pieces. The rest of the convoy was forced to turn around and flee, many exploding before they could retreat. Several Ukrainian soldiers were wounded at the defensive line. The commander reported to headquarters, receiving orders, hold position, save ammunition, wait for reinforcements. The Bradleys began to turn back, this time to evacuate. The Russians did not give up, regrouped in formation, preparing for a second attack from the flank. The Ukrainian evacuation team closed in. A Bradley rushed in. The situation was dire. Every move had to be split second. The Bradley immediately withdrew, narrowly escaping the encirclement. The Russians were not giving up. An APC tried to break through the line instead of retreating and stepped on a mine. Ukrainian Leopard tanks continued to provide support, firing from a distance, from the beginning of the battle to the end.